Tom, it always, for some reason, feels like it sneaks up on me when we get to this Monday. And then, like, all day I'm kind of realized, like, oh, yeah, this is the end of the season. This is the college football national championship. And now that the season is extended so much, it feels even stranger when we get to this day.
I mean, think about it. The FCS playoffs ended 2 weeks ago, and they have 24 teams.
Yeah, that's a good point.
we're sitting here coming off of a phenomenal NFL playoff weekend. And, oh, wait a minute. We got the national championship tonight.
You know, it's in all the debate I know down there in Miami is centered around 12 team, 16 team, or 24 team, and who's to blame, and Big Ten's wrong, SEC's right, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Am I wrong, though, Tom, in looking at that and thinking, I mean, yes, that is important, and, you know, should this game be played on Saturday night after earlier NFL playoff games? And all those questions are important, but of the laundry list of items that needs fixing in college football or needs rules and structure, I feel like this is way down the list, and it dominates the conversation right now.
It's way down the list, and it should be, because tampering, the transfer portal, player movement, the market, name, image, and likeness, those concerns far outweigh what we have with the college football playoff. And hey, listen, I'm all for making tweaks and improving the college football playoff. I think we all want that, but there are more pressing issues at hand that are affecting this great sport of ours that need to be addressed before this does.
You know, looking at Indiana and Curt Cignetti, Tom, and seeing what they've accomplished, it's unprecedented in a number of ways, and it's so surprising. But it feels like if they're able to win tonight, and what that would do to shatter everything that we've known throughout time about recruiting rankings and how that translates to eventual national champions because of where they rank with their recruits, to me, that would say, okay, it is possible, right? Like, it's not easy to replicate, and you do need to go get great players if you're going to have a chance. But then if Miami wins, it's like, well, see, told you. They got all the 4- and 5-star recruits and the better players, and they won the national title.
Well, you know, it's interesting, and I've been on this side of it for almost 21 years, and there's roughly 25 to 2,700 kids that will come out of each and every recruiting cycle that will sign an FBS letter of intent. Well, you know, in the old days, it used to be that, you know, that was your team, and you kept your team, and you developed players, and they got older and better, and you know, you hope to have one of those years where you had a bunch of redshirt juniors and a redshirt seniors, and you had the right quarterback. Well, now it's about recruitment and retention, right? Development's got to fall somewhere in there, but do you have them for a long enough time to develop them and then retain them? That's the challenge. And so when you look at the numbers and you look at an Indiana, or you look at an Iowa or a Rutgers, or I could name 30 some odd schools where you say, okay, that team's probably not going to have access to the 4- and 5-star player regularly, consistently, 6 to 8 guys per recruiting class. So now you look at the transfer portal, and this is where Curt Cignetti has gotten it dead on correct. He doesn't care about where you were ranked. He doesn't care what your name is. If you look at their roster and you look at their 2 deep, look at how many players are redshirt seniors, redshirt juniors, and graduates, and then go back and look at how many previous starts that they had at their other location. So what Curt Cignetti is saying is, okay, not everybody develops at the same rate, which is 100% true. So it doesn't matter if you are at Ferris State or you are at JMU or wherever it is. If you've been productive and you have performed, that trumps player rankings. Now, I think what's going to happen over the course of time, and I'll get to Miami on this in a second, is can now Indiana move into that realm because of their success on the field, where they start having better access to the high school players coming out, integrate those guys and blend them with the transfer portal, because that's where Miami has done a really good job. Miami has brought in transfer portal additions that have improved their roster. But if you look at their roster, Malachi Toney, high school player, Ruben Bain, high school player, Mark Fletcher, high school player, Francis Mauinoa, high school player, all guys that they recruited, developed, integrated early, and have been able to retain. And that's the name of the game. If you get great players out of the high school level, but none of them end up playing for you, then who cares, right? I think that's the thing that we're starting to see with these teams that are managing the portal, and then also able to maintain and retain their high school prospects. I think that's the next evolution of Indiana, and it's really a great sign. Miami is a great, I think, blueprint for how you succeed in today's college football world, because they've been able to do it both ways.
Hey, if you like the channel, become a season ticket holder for Hot Mic by clicking the subscribe button below and join the conversation in the comments section. Agree, disagree, we'll join you there in the chat. Now back to Hot Mic.
Really, in the state that I'm in right now, there's two really good examples of the different approaches with this. Vanderbilt and Tennessee.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt is the oldest team by a mile in the SEC this past year. They won 10 games.
Old.
Tennessee was the youngest team with the most freshmen highest percentage by a mile. They got worked in the second half physically against an old man Vanderbilt team in that game. And the old school way of thinking would have been, well, that's not bad because Tennessee's going to develop these guys. They're going to be older next year. They're going to be a lot better. And I think traditional thinking, yes, that's what happens. And Tennessee did a good job of retaining their freshman class they liked and their sophomores. But if you're not doing that, Tom, then what's the point? You can't really hype anymore that, hey, we got a really young team, and this is going to get better and better as we go along, because that's just not reality and how this business works right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a young team and a team that's really, really talented. The question is, how many of them can you keep, right? How many of them are going to remain there through their 3 or 4 if they've redshirted 5 years? And it's nobody has a crystal ball for that. I call signing day now rent a player for 18 months a day. Because essentially, if you look at these rosters and you look at the top programs in the country, right? Go look at their roster 2 years from now, and then go look back and see how many of the 25 or how many guys it is that they signed out of the high school ranks that are still playing on that roster.
Yeah, it's staggering when you look around and see how this is done. But there is a perfect sweet spot with both helping your roster and recruiting the high school ranks well. But it's also about fit. You said Curt Cignetti, home run. The transfers they brought in, it works for what they are. Tom, you had a list of the top 5 best fits from the transfer portal. Byron Brown, not a name that a lot of people would put at the top, but makes a ton of sense when you think about where he's coming from, the system he was under with his coach, Alex Golesh, who is now at Auburn.
Yeah, and when I put together this article, I think we did 15 guys. And it wasn't so much, okay, this team got the best player. No, it was about whether or not that player will flourish, meet, or exceed expectations because of the situation that they've put themselves into. So with Byron Brown, you've got a guy that intimately knows the system. He can add as almost an extra coach on the field in the meeting room, because he's going to be able to dictate to the other players around him, hey, no, this is how we do things, and we're going to run it this way, and we're going to call it this way, and this is why. He becomes an extra arm of Alex Golesh. So if you start in the portal with that position and you get that position fixed, because we've seen multiple instances across college football where if you miss on a quarterback, it don't matter what you did anywhere else. But if you hit on a quarterback, it creates all the other opportunities. And I think that fit to me was a no-brainer. You look at Cam Coleman. Okay, well, why is that a fit to Texas? Well, they lost Parker Livingstone, DeAndre Moore, and Jamie French, all within 10 days. They've got Ryan Wingo back. So now all of a sudden you've got a puzzle piece on the opposite of Ryan Wingo and a quarterback that's going to be a first-round draft choice. That's a hell of a fit to me, right? That was a good decision. I'm not saying that Cam Coleman couldn't have succeeded at Auburn with Byron Brown. Of course he could have. But when he decided to go in the portal, he started looking at the pieces on the board and is like, okay, how do I put myself in the best position to be at a better spot here than I was in the place that I left?
Outside of Lane Kiffin, when you look at the hires in the Big Ten and the SEC, it's fascinating to see the differences in where the SEC went with the coach from the Group of 5 conference school that's ready for a step up type of hire, and the Big Ten goes with Matt Campbell, established power coach, right? Pat Fitzgerald, established power coach. Kyle Whittingham, established power coach at those schools. We're talking portal fits. Let's talk coaching portal, excluding Lane Kiffin and LSU, which is the biggest one of this cycle. Who's the best fit that you see from who they are and where they landed?
From a coaching perspective?
Coaching.
Kyle Whittingham, because that program needs rehabbing. And the one thing about Kyle Whittingham is he is black and white. You always know where he stands. There ain't going to be no monkey business. And if you ain't tough and if you don't adhere to the rules, you won't be there any longer. And Michigan needs that in their program right now. They also put themselves in a position through the portal and through the hiring of their staff to really help Bryce Underwood. I mean, to have Jason Beck come with that offensive system, seeing what they did a year ago at Utah and how to utilize the athletic quarterback, and the fact that what has come out the last couple of weeks that Michigan didn't have a devoted quarterback coach for a true freshman. What are we doing? Like, how is that even? That's unfathomable to me. So I think the timing of the Whittingham hire, the resources he's going to have that maybe he wouldn't have had at Utah, the familiarity in the system. They brought some guys over from Utah on the defensive side that understand what they want to be defensively. I think that one was a. Now we'll see what happens, but given the current state of the program and maybe what they needed most was an identity, discipline, a vision, a blueprint. That was a great hire, in my opinion.
Tom, who are you paying or what matchup are you paying the most attention to tonight? And who do you think wins this game between Miami and Indiana?
You know, the thing about this game, and that gets glossed over, is everybody wants to talk about the run Indiana's had and how Miami kind of turned things around after those two losses, and they got themselves into this point. But the thing about Indiana, and I don't know if I've ever seen this in my lifetime, and I've been in a college coach's office and locker room since I could walk. I have never seen a team not beat themselves so consistently as Indiana does. And when you don't beat yourself and you pounce on the other team's mistakes the way that they do, you're almost impossible to beat. I mean, Chad, they have turned the ball over 8 times the entire year. They have 11 defensive penalties. They have lost 1 fumble in 15 weeks, and that came in the first game of the season. Nobody in the history of college football has ever done that. They don't take negative plays. They do not give up explosive plays. They're almost flawless in the kicking game. So with that being said, Miami's got to match that efficiency. You might be the more talented team top to bottom, but you cannot make mistakes. I think the number one, to get to your question, I think that Miami, what they've done in the playoff is they've owned the fourth quarter. They bloody your nose and they beat you up throughout the course of the game, and then they get you into the fourth quarter and they just work you. I mean, they put you into submission. You know, Mark Fletcher had 172 yards rushing against Texas A&M. 91 of them came in the fourth quarter. They absolutely demoralized Ohio State in the fourth quarter. And then they had this unbelievable 3rd down conversion rate in the fourth quarter against Ole Miss. And they're going to have some of that. So when you look at Indiana, if there's a deficiency, Indiana is really undersized on defense. You know, they're 262 on one edge, 244 on the other. They're around 280 at the one tackle spot. And then the nose tackle, Tyreek Tucker, is 6 foot 300, right? He looks like a keg with arms. Well, if you're Miami, you want to take those guys and put them in a phone booth and see if they can hold up at the point of attack. You know, you look at the Ohio State game in the Cotton Bowl. Ohio State had 7 offensive plays in the first half. So the best way to deal with Indiana offensively is to keep them on the sideline. And that offensive line for Miami you got to get a note from your mother to play against these guys now. And I'm telling you. And so I think that's the thing I'm looking at. How does Indiana hold up front on defense if Miami gets grinding in the run game?
8 turnovers in what is going to be the 16th game for Indiana is about as wild as a stat as the New York Jets not having a single interception in 17 games in reverse.
They've had 6 drop passes the entire season.
Just
6. That's it.
Absolutely insane. I've never seen a better coach team ever, possibly, than what Indiana does. They don't make a single misstep on defense. Also, it's remarkable,
and that's why I think they're going to win. I don't know if they're the most talented team, but I think they're going to win because of that.
I'm with you. I'm not picking against Curt Cignetti in this group for sure. Tom Luginbill is with ESPN. He's down in Miami, always does great work. And Tom, appreciate you helping on with us today.
Appreciate it, man. Have a good one. Enjoy the game.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to OutKick Hot Mic.
Daily content and more at OutKick Hot Mic on YouTube.